Good evening, everyone. I am Madam of the Night. Happy Halloween. Thank you for joining me, and I hope you will enjoy tonight's story. So, since it is Halloween, I am going to be talking about one of my personal experiences, and this one is pretty creepy. So, this happened to me back in 2014. I believe it was during the winter season. It was very cold, and I was coming from Stamford, Connecticut from seeing a friend. Trust me on this, I have never told anyone this story, but I feel like tonight is the best time to talk about it, and also from personal experiences that has happened in the past 2 years from that incident. So I decided to get on the train. I think it was around 6:30, 7 o'clock in the morning, because I knew I had to hurry up and get home and feed Biscuit and walk him and then go to work. So I was sitting in a car with two-seaters. There was one woman on the train. She was like a few seats ahead of me, and another young gentleman sitting maybe a few seats behind me. But as soon as we got to the Riverside train station, a very intriguing character walked inside the train car. He was extremely tall, very lean. I remember him having on maybe a derby hat and a long trench coat. It was dark gray, and a gray suit and these brown loafers. He had to be at least 7 feet tall, to the point where his head basically couldn't really, basically almost hit the surface of the car. He had to duck his head down in order to enter the train car. So when I saw him, I got this really bad feeling in my gut. I was too afraid to make eye contact, but at the same time, I couldn't stop staring at him. So he was staring right back at me. So then I decided to look away, and I noticed, from my peripheral, that he was still staring at me. So I decided to turn off my music, and I had my pepper spray in my pocket. So I was saying to myself, oh my God, if this guy tries something, I gotta be ready. But he's huge. So I decided to look away from him because it was just making me feel really uneasy. So he decides to come towards me, and he sits right across from me next to the two-seater, and I still was just looking out the window, acting like I didn't see him walking towards me. So then I started to woman up, and I started looking directly at him, and he's like, hello. I said, hi, how are you? He says, so, where you headed? I said, home. Then I asked him the very same question. I said, where are you headed? He said, from time to time, I just decide to pick up and go and visit places that I've never visited before. Sometimes I just get on the train and I decide to go someplace just to see what it looks like. So I said, oh, so you're a traveler? And he says, yes, indeed. I am very much a traveler. He said, you might want to call me the adventurer. And I thought that was pretty weird. So I asked him and I said, hey, so where are you from? Now, during this time that I'm having the conversation, I start to analyze him a little bit more. I'm like, he seems even taller when he's sitting down. His hands were very large. His skin was extremely pale. It kind of reminded me of the character from the movie Powder.
I'd beat you to shit before you got this old hat back. That's what he said to you when he was drunk. You were 12 years old, and he took your father's hat. It's the only thing your real father ever left behind.
And then I started to look at his features, and I noticed that his jaw and mouth line was kind of elongated and just weird. Then he says to me, as we're having, a mutual conversation, he says to me, you didn't have to turn off your music. And I spooked out for a minute.
Oh my goodness!
Because I don't listen to my music very loud to the point where you have headphones on and you can still hear someone's music. I never do that. There was no way that he can tell if I turned my music on and off without sitting next to me, but he wasn't sitting next to me when I did turn off my music. So I said, "Excuse me?" And he said, "You didn't have to turn off your music. You could have kept it playing." So basically, he definitely was watching all of my actions, standing there staring at me before he sat down next to me. So then he said, "So, what do you have planned today?" I said, "I am going to work, but I definitely have to walk and feed my dog first." So I said, "What do you have planned today?" He said, "Oh, I'm just exploring, reading people, figuring things out." And he had such like a melatonin voice. It was kind of soothing. It wasn't creepy, but very soothing. So I asked the big question. I said, "Where are you from?" He says to me, "Don't worry about that, Kiara. I can't answer that question." So I said to him, "How do you know my name?" I immediately freaked out. I didn't react in front of him, but in my mind, I was like, wait a minute, I don't remember telling him my name. I've never told him my name. He says, "Oh, well, I know a lot of things. I know a lot of things about this world. I know a lot of things about people. And you can say that I'm just very different from everyone else, including everyone else on this train." So immediately I started thinking that this guy was crazy, but at the same time, he seemed so convincing that every word that was coming out of his mouth seemed like truth. Then I started thinking, is he a stalker? Is he stalking me? How does he know my name? But I didn't feel threatened, but I was fearful, but I didn't feel any threat from him. So I said, "Are you from this world?" So then he starts laughing. But as soon as he started laughing, I was getting creeped out even more because he had more teeth in his mouth than a normal human would. It wasn't canine. It was very human-like, but you can tell that the bridge of his teeth were very long, and then his mouth just kind of stretched open, kind of like the Joker, when the Joker cut his sides of his jaw to make his smile longer and brighter.
Why so serious? He comes at me with the knife. Why so serious? He sticks the blade in my mouth. Let's put a smile on that face.
Yeah, it was kind of like that. Then he realized that I had this expression on my face like, and he's like, "Oh, I'm sorry. I didn't mean to scare you." So then I was like, no, seriously, pressing him, like, "Where are you from? Where did you come from?" He said, "If I tell you that, you wouldn't believe me. So let's just change the subject." So then he says to me, "You seem very lonely and you seem lost. Are you okay?" And I was like, wow, I'm fine, but what makes you say that? And he says to me, "Well, I can tell." He said, "I can just look in your eyes and see like a very deep sadness." I said, "I apologize if I gave you that impression, but I think I'm pretty making the best of my life right now." So he says, "I want to tell you something, but I don't want to freak you out. You have a very good spirit and you're very kind and you're very open, but at the same time, I don't want to freak you out." I said, "Well, I'm all ears now." What is your name, by the way?" He said, "As I mentioned before, you can just call me the adventurer." So I said, "What do you want to tell me?" He said, 2 years from now, you're gonna go through something very detrimental in your life. You are gonna be challenged in so many ways, and it's gonna be extremely hard for you. But you are such a strong person to the point where you will pull through it. I was thinking to myself, I said, well, anyone can tell me that, you know, like anyone can say anything about anybody and just take a guess and say, oh, you know, a family member is going to pass, or, you know, something bad is going to happen to you. But something in me realized that this being knows exactly what he's talking about. During this process, you're going to lose some very important people in your life, and it's really going to hurt you. So be careful of everything that you do during this process. So I said, what do you mean? So he says, you know, during this transition in your life, you're gonna go through something. He said, I don't think I can really tell you. I mean, I can't tell you, but I can just give you a forewarning. That's just my job. And I said, your job? He said, I'm sort of what you call a guide. Yeah, he was like, I'm sort of what you call a guide. I guide people through tough situations in their life. So he tells me, you know, you're gonna have a lot of support, and be mindful of those around you and be mindful of those who are gonna support you through this process. I don't know what came over me, but I started crying. I started tearing up. I don't know if he forced this emotion on me, but I really can't explain it. Like, I just started tearing. And he says, don't cry. I hate to see you cry. Don't cry. You're gonna be okay. So then he starts doing that weird smiling thing again. And I started to creep out again, but also feeling sad. And then he stopped because I guess he realized that it started to scare me. He was like, I don't mean any harm, and I don't mean to be, you know, weird or scary, but, you know, this is the only approach that I can take. So I said, being that you mentioned that you're a guide, are you my guardian angel? He said, I guess it could be another name for who I am, but no, I am not a guardian angel. Then it was kind of like he went in a trance, and he closed his eyes and he started murmuring in a different language. I have no idea what language it was, but it definitely wasn't familiar to the ear. So then I thought, is he putting a spell on me? What's going on right now? It said, be prepared, be very strong, and don't give up. So he comes out of it, and then he just smiles, but this time he just smiles without his teeth showing. And he says, you're gonna be okay. So I believe we arrived at Port Chester at this point. And he says to me, well, I gotta go, Kiara. And then I had this overwhelming, calming sensation in my body, as if I was personally being healed. And he says to me, well, it was great talking to you, but do remember, you're a survivor. And I was like, what is he talking about? Am I gonna die? And then what, come back to life? Like, what is he talking about? He said, you will figure it out on your own. Don't worry about it. And like I said, don't freak out. I said, are you reading my thoughts right now? He chuckles and he's like, yes, I am actually. And then I said to him, wait, I wanna know more. I wanna know exactly what I have to look out for. He said, you will know in due time. It was nice meeting you. Then he gets up, being extremely tall again, and bows his head at me like this. And he said, have a great one. Oh, and say hi to Biscuit for me. And gets off the train. Now I know people are probably thinking like, what? Did this really happen? Yes, it really happened. And I never shared this with anyone, but it definitely answers a lot of questions to what I experienced in 2016. I was diagnosed with triple negative cancer in my left breast, and I couldn't believe it. And the first thing that popped in my mind was the adventure, and everything started making sense to me. And I immediately, when I got the results, I just started bawling. And I said to myself, this is what he was talking about. This is exactly what he was talking about. How did he know this? I understand, you know, you walking up to someone and saying, hey, you know, you're gonna get cancer. Like, how do you tell someone like that? So I feel like his approach was very, very safe, and he definitely had good intentions at heart. So I had to share this experience because, as I said before, I've never told anyone, and personally, I really don't care what anyone thinks. I know what I experienced, and this being has helped me out a lot. He was preparing me for the worst. Now, I don't know if he was an angel. I don't know if he was alien, but I feel like he's definitely on this earth helping people and trying to get them through life. You never know who you're gonna run into or meet, throughout your daily life. And I can say that I was glad to experience something like that, and it was very spiritual and very enlightening. But I am okay. I did beat cancer. Everything was successful. I've been in remission for now, which will about to be 7 years. And I just pray that it never comes back again. And I just want to say thank you to the adventurer. Who knows? He's probably even watching this video as we speak. But there are things on this earth that are unexplainable. And until you experience yourself what the differences are in this whole universe, I mean, who can believe it? As always, please like, subscribe, and hit that bell icon so you can receive notifications of all my postings every week. And I will see you ghouls soon. You never know what goes bump in the night. Happy Halloween.